let's start a discussion on very important topic, that is a model validation for the anti-money laundering and counter financing terrorism systems. So how to validate these models which are inbuilt by the banks or the financial systems or the insurance firms, to validate the anti-money laundering and counter finance terrorism. So ensure the integrity and the compliance of such models. So, guys, it is a very important topic if you are the part of anti-money laundering and counter terrorist financing in the model development or the model testing or the model validation team. And if you are the business analyst or any other role, that will also help you these videos. So let's start a discussion on this video. The anti-money laundering and counter the financing of terrorism is a landscape. Let's discuss on what is that thing. So anti-money laundering is a thing where deterring and detecting and the reporting the money laundering. If any financial person and any criminal will do to clean their money with using the banking system, so identify such criminal and report related data to that criminal to the compliance like financial intelligence units or the central bank. So that's the anti-money laundering and the counter the financing of terrorism, so preventing the funding of terrorism activities. So uh, helps to reduce or to to prevent if there is a funding happening for the terrorist activities, and to identify the such patterns or anomalies in the patterns, so it's that the funding will go for the terrorist activities. So to define the rules and logics in the system and validate that logic or the rules is as we are expected working, so validate these models. So the role of models, the financial institution use the automated system and model to analyze the vast amount of data. So to the financial institution, it's do that the automatic system and models. The models are crucial for why these model are crucial. Why these model are implemented in the so customer risk classification like KYC, customer due diligence, or the transaction monitoring system. So continuously transaction, ongoing transaction monitor these transactions or the sanction screening, name screening, the payment screening, so done by the financial institutions to ensure that the customer which they are onboarding are the low risks or high risks or the medium risks, and to such they build such models or add such models. So where we need to do the validation of that model, is that model is performing as we are expected. So why validate the model? So first one is a regulatory imperative, mitigation of model risks, mitigating the model risks, ensuring the effectiveness and operational efficiency. That will increase the operational efficiency if model is accurately validated. So regulatory imperative. So regulatory body like the FinCEN, Financial Action Task Force, and the OCC require the robust validation to ensure the compliance and avoid the penalties on that financial institution. So they have some rules and regulations how to validate the model. What why when the model will generate the alert, so they provide some the rules, and on that basis is that model working or not working, and the regulator will continuously change the requirements. So that requirement we feel that requirement we feel in the production environment or in the EVT environment, or it is in the sandbox environment. So we need to check or validate or test that model, is that as per the regulatory requirement that work that model. So mitigating the model risk. So every models specify the reality and creating the model risks and validate, identify and mitigate the risks. Each model have the the risk. So model will increase the true positive rate and reduce the fails positive rate and generate the alert as we define and when we define. So ensuring the effectiveness, so validation verification that the model is performing as intent and act and effective at detecting the suspicious activity. So whenever it is, and if we are the batch processing model or the real time model or the near real time model, so it should be able to detect the suspicious activity with taking the transactions and within the transaction duration. So that model will ensuring the effectiveness of the transaction and the operational efficiency. A well validated model reduce the false positive, and we save the times and resource and improve the focus of investigation. If we are operational efficiency, the well validated model will increase the operational efficiency and reduce the false positive rate and increase the true positive rates. And if the model is well validated, so human interaction or the cost of on the humans are reduced and we are able to save these costs. So let's move on the next slide. So the pillars of validation of the framework. So what are the pillars? What are the stages we need to use to validate the model? So first one is the governance, conceptual soundness, data validation, and outcome analysis. So in a governance, a clear policy, roles and responsibilities of their entire model life cycle. So we need to define the clear policy. Regulatory will give us, the internal team of the compliance team will give us the regulator policy and the roles and responsibilities of entire model life cycle. So the model creation, model development, model testing, model validation, and model deploy in the production environment. So all these the life cycle, what are the roles and what are their responsibilities in that role. So that entire the structure we define and work on that way. So conceptual soundness, a review of models design, theory and the underlying assumption. This ensure that model logic is a sound and working has the regulator accept expectation to work that model. So that should be there, and it will produce the true positive result more and reduce the false positive result. And then the data validation, it is and the most important thing, that the throughout the checks of data used by the models for accuracy and completeness and integrity. So we need to validate the data when the data ingestion will happen and when we are feeding data to the model. So it is data to accurate and it contains the detailed information, so model can predict the alert just accurately. So the outcomes analysis, correct, we need to do the outcome analysis also. So evaluating the model performance by comparing its output. So the performance of model use the different matrix or the different techniques to do the model performance, like the confusion matrix or the RAC matrix. So use these matrix and the precision recall technique to validate the model performance to actual outcomes, and the model outcome or the actual outcomes. So let's move on the next things, that is the model validation life cycle. So how the model validation life cycle will work. So initially the initial validation, and then the ongoing monitoring and periodic review and ad hoc validation. So these are the four stages in the model validation life cycle. So first in the initial validation, so where a comprehensive review before the model is put into the production environment. So we will do the comprehensive review and to feed the data that model and analyze the behavior of that model, how that model will generate the result and put to analysis on that model. And then the ongoing monitoring, once the model we are deploying the production environment, so we will do the continuous performance tracking of the model against the risks and the performance indicator. We do the key risks indicator and the key performance indicator and continuously validate these matrix and check the performance of that model while we are deploy some new features or functions in that model, or the add some regulatory requirement. And then the periodic revalidation. So we need to do the full scale revalidation on the defined schedule of that model. Will annually or every 18 month will do the periodic validation. We do the tuning, threshold tuning of that model, and to test that model is meet the business objective or the business goals. And the ad hoc validation triggered by the significant change to the model and data on regulatory environment, and it is satisfy the regulatory requirements. So there are the some stages in the model validation life cycle. So the model risk governance, conceptual model design soundness, model development, implementation, and use and ongoing monitoring and input out analysis. It is an important what we are feed to the data and what the output is generated by the analysis. So that analysis we will call as the input and output analysis. And then the data management and control integrity and the limitation and the trace testing finally we do. And then we will go deploy that model into the production environment. So let's discuss on the next slide. That is a key validation activities we done. What are the activities we do to validate that model? So first one is a back testing, benchmark testing, sensitivity analysis, challenger model documentation review, or the scenario analysis. In a back testing, the testing the model performance on historical data to confirm its accuracy. So that model we feed the historical data, and we know what are the results performed by that historical data. So then we will check what the model will give the expected outcomes on that historical data, and we are able that model is performed accurately or not accurately. And then the benchmark testing, so we set some benchmark by the model result against the reliable alternative model, and said the expert define the rules we feed. We have some benchmark, so we comparing the model result against the reliable and alternative model results, how that get generated. And then we will do the sensitivity analysis. It is an important to assessing how the model output changes when the input of parameter are altered. So this is the sensitivity analysis, we also called as an input output analysis. We assume that model output changes when the input parameter are alternated. So we will provide the different types of the inputs to that model, or different types of input data to model, and validate that the output is going from that model is as per the expectation or as per the input or not. And we validate or do the sensitivity analysis. And the challenger models, so running a new and more advanced model in the parallel environment and compare its performance against the existing model. So we feed the new models to the that environment and check the model performance against the challenger model, and whichever is model so most appropriate, and the solve the business problem and apply as per the business logic or the business rules. So these model we will get implement in the production environment. And then the documentation and review, so we verify all that all the models documentation is complete, accurate, and up to date. So we will prepare the document and verify the document and the performance of the document, and send this document to the regulator so they can review this document and update this documentation. So then the common challenges in anti-money laundering and counter the finance of terrorism model validation. So what are the challenges faced by the teams? So let's the data quality and availability. So poor and incomplete and solid data can severity and impact the model accuracy. So we have there is a lack of data and the data quality and availability of data. So that will that is very challenging to validate the model, or to test the performance of model. And the high false positive rates, it's at the very challenging in the AML and CFT domain. So the model will generate the high positive, high fails, positive rate, and for that require the huge amount of human resource to validate this thing and work accordingly. So model often generate the too many false positive alerts, leading to investigate fungi and inefficiency. So that will increase the inefficiency of resource, and the human will not able to identify the true positive rates. And the involving the financial crime typology. So criminal are consistently changing their methods, making it default for the static model to keep an up to date. So we need to use the AML techniques, and it is involving the financial typologies. Wow, how the criminal think, and what are the techniques they criminal will use to do the AML and CFT for the model. So accordingly, we need to build the model as per the criminal activities. And the lacks of skilled person. So a shortage, yeah, it is. And the important, there is a shortage of professional with expertise in the both the financial crime and the data science. So there is the lack of skilled person in the financial crime and the data science domain in the model validation. and then the integration with the legacy system. So the currently many system are outdated system or the legacy system, so everyone wants to move into the new system, or the many institutions struggle to integrate new modern models with the outdated IT infrastructure and the AIML systems that will increase the model efficiency and model will validate accurately. So these are the challenges currently faced by the financial institution or the banks. So let's discuss on the best practices into the AML CFT domain for the model validation. So independent validation based risk-based approach, strong documentation, collaboration, and continuous improvement. Improvement in the model. So independent validation. So the validation team should be independent of the model development team and ensure an unbiased review. It's the correct. So there is the independent model validation team, and the model development team is not with the model validation team, because the model there is the biasness will increase. The model the validation team and the model development team may be the same. And the risk based approach to prioritize the validation of higher risk model and the scenarios or the higher risk customer. So we will do the lower risks or the medium risks or the higher risks, and then we validate and to feed these data accordingly on the risk level of the transaction or the customers. And the strong documentation, we should have maintained the comprehensive and easy accessible documentation for all the models. We should have the document for the functional document or the non-functional document or the technical document, so the person can read this document and understand that functionality or the model purpose or to validate the model for each team. And the collaboration is important, so faster and strong working relationship between the compliance IT and risk control functions, or between the model validation team or the model development team. So these all teams are get complete collaborate with together and working and to develop and to test the validate and to validate these models. And then the continuous improvement, user validation findings and has a feedback loop to refine and improve the model over times. And then the continuous improvement and the threshold tuning that model will happen. Then the conclusion. So final last slide is a conclusion. So model validation, it's not just a regulator hurdle, but it's a strategical tool for managing the risks and ensuring the effectiveness of your anti-money laundering and counter finance terrorism program. So model validation is beyond the regulatory requirement that help you to save to increase the financial performance and to reduce the financial charges or the regulatory burden on the you, and make sure you are the good in the industry. So reviews as well documented and validated framework is essential for maintain the compliance and protecting the institution for financial crime and enhance the operational efficiency. So if model is accurately validated, so that will reduce the financial crime and enhance the operational efficiency. And by embracing the discipline and proactive approach, the financial institution can turn the model validation into the key competitive advantage, and that will increase. So there is the end of the slides. If you like my efforts and if you like these videos, please like and subscribe my channels. And if you have any questions, please ping me on or the comment on the my video, so I'll definitely happy to give you answer your questions. So thank you so much for attending these videos. Thanks guys.